Hey kids, implicitly not a Spider-Man channel here. When I was a tiny baby, I remember watching Spider-Man the new anime series on an ancient artifact called the VHS, and when it came to a close, Peter Parker threw his costume in the river, I was like... But nope, the show was cancelled. Next to Roughnecks' cliffhanger and never getting a third Scooby-Doo film, this miserable nihilistic ending would haunt me for the rest of my life. MTV Spider-Man was originally produced as an adaptation of Ultimate Spider-Man. In fact, Bendis was involved in the original pilot, but then the success of the Raimi films led it to being reworked as a sequel. So Harry is mad at Spider-Man.
I get that you think Spider-Man killed your father, on account of he did.
MJ and Peter Parker have unrequited love.
Don't you ever just go with your feelings?
Well, yeah, sometimes.
And it's set in university. Although TNA is technically not canon, the biggest and most obvious point of divergence outside of the ending is Peter Parker himself. Instead of being shy and introverted, he's got that sort of Lee Ramita charm to the extent that I can totally imagine him saying Gwendy without sounding cringy. Good job, Neil Patrick Harris.
What's with Dolce & Gabbana?
And he also actively investigates his villains.
I underestimated your tracking skills, Spider-Man.
So in a lot of ways, he's almost actually the opposite of Toby. The animation was also done by Mainframe, famous for Reboot, and Beast Wars, and producer Morgan Gendel was given the full freedom to make it more adult due to the relaxed MTV standards. So guns weren't lasers, there's a bit more blood, sexy stuff would be suggested, and revisiting it now as a hardened criminal who's experienced life, I'm like, holy moly. There's actually a really beautiful story presented here. What defines MTV Spider-Man more than any other adaptations are his deep friendships. Friends.
Best friends forever and ever. All friends.
Because at foremost, he's a man who lives for his friends, and to best explain this is to oddly enough work backwards from the ending. Peter quits being Spider-Man not because he couldn't hold his jizz anymore, or because it seemed more responsible for the public, but because while under the influence of mental manipulation, he pushed one of his dear friends, Indy, off the side of a building. Afterwards, there was no doubt. There was no wishy-washy moment of contemplation. Peter Parker knew he messed up, so he quits.
He should either leave town or hang up his webs for good.
I agree. But not quite yet.
That decisiveness is both the central quality of this version of Peter Parker and also what the entire show had been subtly building towards. The 13 episodes are organized into 3 sets of 3 to 5 episodes, which explores a different layer of Peter Parker's self-consciousness. Yes, this is the bit where I get into the psychology stuff, guys. Feel free to open a different tab. Rogers' concentric circles argues that our sense of self is determined by how we disclose ourselves to others, and within this act of selectivity, we form different versions of ourselves. The public self is what we openly reveal to others, for example, our hobbies and interests. MTV Spider-Man opens with Peter Parker taking pictures of a protest from afar. Stanley would be proud. It's also literally about student housing too, just like issue 68. But then Turbojet, who looks like a terrible Lego astronaut figure, shows up. He robs from the rich and is celebrated as a Robin Hood type, which turns the public against Spider-Man. Their big ideological difference is that one believes in enforcing the rules, the other is about looking after people. However, Turbojet is actually really just a narcissist.
If people want to make me a hero, that's only because they're too stupid to help themselves.
Which Spider-Man then delightfully publicly calls him out on, la-di-la-di-da-da-blah-blah-blah-blah. In the end, it's revealed Peter is just a dude who believes action speaks louder than words. Play clip where Peter Parker says action speaks louder than words.
Actions speak louder than words.
But also, more importantly, this version of the character isn't a lonely, angry dude motivated by even lonelier self-doubt, but he's motivated by the love for his friends. And that gives him the integrity to be unconsciously selfless, despite how he's publicly received. When Harry is moving into his father's office, attacked, and then must process Spider-Man helping him, Peter's expansive empathy is what Mary Jane specifically notices.
You lost your parents, then your uncle, then for a while me. Yet the last few days, all you can think of is your friend Harry.
I can't stress this enough, this Peter Parker is just a solid guy who wears his heart on his sleeves, and is never vulnerable because his strength comes from the heart. It comes from looking at the right place. On next videos.
See, that's the thing about life. It's always on the move. If you look in the right place, You can never be sure what you'll find.
As I summarized from Beck, Bennett, and Wall, who are also ironically summarizing Carl Rogers. Dude, Leo, you're so lazy with your research sometimes. This public self is a significantly more superficial version of the self than the one we show to close friends and family, let alone the core self that remains with us at all times. His concentric circle model shows the interconnectedness of these selves. And here's the first point of friction. Peter Parker's secrets as Spider-Man limit his private self. The private self is very specifically what we only share with our friends and family. For example, only my closest friends know that I'm still deeply in love with Felicity Jones. MJ wants Peter Parker, but ironically, as Peter Parker, he can't stop pushing her away while pulling her closer as Spider-Man. Wait, isn't this the same plot as Batman Forever?
You fought her. For me.
Not alone.
The episode which explicitly highlights this lack of interconnectedness is the Pterodox episode, which spelling Pterodox immediately is a pain in the ass, guys. What the fuck? Because Peter Parker shouts, "Holy crap," to Mary Jane's face.
Holy crap!
I don't know why that's funny to me. He flirts with a new girl in his life, Indy, to get access to stuff. He makes her a custom CD. As a result, MJ is left in the dark from all the confused messages.
And tell me what's going on in that big brain of his.
Oh no, I know where this is going.
The Pterodox then takes the new station hostage with a threat to liquefy their organs.
The sonic waves liquefy human organs while doing minimal damage to valuable real estate.
Jeez, what the They demand Spider-Man's arrival after he foiled their previous diamond robbery. MJ gets mad at Peter Parker for standing her up, but then discovers he's a hostage. Peter escapes. The whole thing is a trap to kill Spider-Man, while the Pterodax continue to steal the diamonds. Spider-Man stops it, but then, oh no, Peter Parker gets a kiss from Indy in front of MJ. No! I actually wrote that in the script. Why didn't I? The point is, Peter Parker is a dude who wants things both ways, and it's his reckless behavior and disinterest in treating his own duality fairly that causes him to drift into irresponsible buffoonery. This inherent unconscious irresponsibility is the focal point of the finale, as the mental manipulation he experiences is also a means for the show to enter very, very tightly into his core self. If the private self includes self-information that we only discuss with family, then finally, the core self are the thoughts and information we only keep to ourselves. Our insecurities and our imagination. What's wrong with my body? The Gain twins are being transported. They're new villains who can control people through mental manipulation. I guess you could probably figure it. Why did I write that down? The guard says the sister has a nice bod.
Girl's got a nice bod.
I don't know why I also pointed that out too. Spidey attempts to thwart their escape, but before the credits roll, he gets mind-fucked. Supposedly, he successfully defeated them, but in reality, this is when reality ends and the fantasy begins. MJ asks,
Did you ever just wish you could be two people? One to do the thing everyone expects, and one to follow your heart?
He rejects this, and then he does the strange Superman 4 thing where he pushes her to rescue her, and instead of finding him as a complete asshole, she just finds it sweet. I guess this is in Peter Parker's mind, so I guess it makes sense. And Peter Parker, you're such a douchebag. Peter spends his nights with Indy, and spends the day with MJ. He's literally double dipping. Double dipping.
That's double dipping, Peter.
Double dipping is the main theme here. I'm not even joking.
There's no 2-for-1 special, Petey.
Double your rate. A 2-for-1 special.
I noticed you didn't come home last night.
Indies.
I thought you went to a movie with MJ.
Yeah, that was in the afternoon. 2-for-1 special.
You heard me.
Peter, deep down inside, wants everything both ways. Both the girls he likes and to satisfy both sides of his life. But he knows he shouldn't. There's only one of him, and it's a want that's turning him into an asswipe. Therefore, Spider-Man finally reveals his identity to MJ, to protect her, to choose. She embraces him, but Kraven appears and kills her. At her grave, Harry explains this is why he hates Spider-Man, and Peter adopts such hatred for himself. But then, Stan Lee literally appears to direct it towards Kraven.
Good. Then make the chance. He deserves it, doesn't he?
It's so fucked up, I love it. The Gaines twins had actually been conditioning Peter Parker's mind to kill Kraven for revenge. But then, as expected, Spider-Man figures out from banter and doesn't do it. Harry hilariously says,
You know, once in a while, you gotta loosen up and live in the real world.
Exactly what I'm trying to do.
Haha, see what you did there, show. Very smart. Spider-Man goes after the twins, Indy gets the scoop, and this is how Spidey pushes her. Before Peter quits, he personally goes to defeat the twins. MJ arrives to tell Peter that Spidey let everyone down, but she personally celebrates him as being the one who helped her, him as Peter Parker.
But you were the one who made me feel like I was more than I ever thought I could be.
But he needs some alone time. From double dipping to sacrificing his own wants, Peter still believes actions speak louder than words. And to make sure his friends don't pay the price for his double dipping mistakes, he quits.
I don't want to cause any more pain here. I can't live with that burden any longer.
Without Peter's friends, there's no Spider-Man. There's no heart he can live with. I absolutely love MTV Spider-Man because it's such a unique adaptation. It's not only one of the few that's actually set in university, but it actually puts the extra effort in making university feel like university. From clubbing to studying alone to just being only with your close-knit friends. There's a part of me that's grown somewhat resentful over how it's become so normal to transplant university characters and stories into high school because it's supposed to be a distinct, different period of time. It was an important point of change where Peter Parker transforms from being an angry loner that made fun of everyone to actually having friends. This show, more than anything else, depicts this moment in time beautifully. It updates it while taking that Peter Parker who's often forgotten to his most psychologically extreme end. I love this show. Fans are making their own version to try and continue the story after its cancellation. Good luck, troops. And if you don't mind, I need to eat a lot of food because I am starving right now. Jeez.
Everybody wants some love and then affection. All we are is delicate people. Everybody needs love and affection. Yes, we all are delicate people. Everybody wants some love and then affection. All we are is delicate people.
So that was the MTV Spider-Man video. This was supposed to be made ages ago, even before No Way Home, but I didn't know how to organize it. Do I focus more on the episode-to-episode plot development? Do I focus more on the character arcs? It was kind of like, I don't know, but I ended up kind of leaning more towards writing it through the lens of the model instead. And I also tried to adopt a much more naturalistic style for this essay. I just wrote it like how I would explain it to a friend of mine, as opposed to a formal university-like essay, which is what I normally would do with these very theory-driven stuff. Anyways, I hope it was enjoyable either way, and special thanks to everyone on Patreon. Inflation, guys, it's ruining my life.
I don't envy him.
Look at you.
Do I have food on my face?